What is up, everybody? This is your boy, Teran Rodriguez, bringing you another edition of Set Point. And as always, we have ourselves a jam-packed show as we have a lot of volleyball to discuss, such as UCLA continuing to win in terms of men's volleyball. Their latest victim, USC not once, but twice. How did those dirty little Bruins handle the Trojans? Also, how about Pepperdine taking down Hawaii? Did they get one or two from the Bows at Stan Sheriff Center? Also, Long Beach State continues to win as they honored Paul Lottman on Paul Lottman night this past Saturday. And Neva Mania just continues to just be wild as Purdue Fort Wayne takes down Little Chicago. What is happening in the Neva? Also, what is happening with the Omaha Supernovas? They continue on a downward spiral. They lost to the Grand Rapids Rise. Can the Supernovas get together? Also, how about LOBB Nebraska taking down Salt Lake? What is going on with Salt Lake as they are on a skid as well? Handing a volleyball. Set next. Round last service and volleyball action here on Set Point. This is Teran Rodriguez bringing you another edition of Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And welcome one, welcome all to another edition of Set Point. Thank you all for joining me on this beautiful Monday afternoon, Monday evening, Monday wherever you are listening from. Either way, you've made your way to episode 341 of Set Point. And without any further delay, let's begin. But first and foremost, Set Point would not be where it's at without IE Sports Radio providing the platform to go live on YouTube and on X. Please do follow IE Sports Radio on several different social media platforms such as X, TikTok, and Instagram. Also, subscribe to IE Sports Radio on YouTube if you haven't already. We're trying to reach 500 subscribers, and with your help, we could definitely make it happen. So please do subscribe to IE Sports Radio. Tell all your family, tell all your friends. Subscribe to IE Sports Radio. You will not be disappointed. Also, make sure to check out our website, iesportsradio.com. That's in the description of the show, where you can catch all the latest news and all of the latest shows in terms of like different sports and all that sort of thing on IE Sports Radio, and get to know all of us when it comes to IE Sports Radio. And also check out the insiders as well. For the last 11 years, IE Sports Radio has bring you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports around the country. Thank you to everyone for all of your support and for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that sports. A huge shout out to our sponsor, Planet Jerky, Premium Brisket Beef Jerky, and Vital Apparel. So without any further delay, let's get on into what our sponsors are all about. I will see you in a little bit.
IE Sports Radio fans, this show is brought to you by Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, Single A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, is low in sugar, and high in protein. Go to their website at planetjerky.net and follow them on Instagram at Planet Jerky. Planet Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet.
Rise and shine. It's 4 a.m. The stars are still out, The sun is beneath the horizon, but it's time to punch in and go to work. The comfort of your warm-ups turns into the grinding out of your reps as the clinking and the clanking of the plates create a symphony of euphoria. There's no other feeling like it. Earn it, burn it, and take what's yours. IE Sports Radio has proudly partnered with Vital Apparel, a brand that not only fits great, but also promotes and donates to mental health research. Use our code IESR to get 15% off their comfortable and inspiring gym wear and help them on their amazing journey to support mental health. Go hard, take part in your iron therapy, and be strong. Because when your mental health is as strong as you are, there's no telling how far you'll go. For the last 10 years, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. Make sure to follow us at IE Sports Radio on X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube to keep up with the latest in sports and with all of our shows. Also, make sure to check out our daily updated website at iesportsradio.com. At iesportsradio.com, you can see our daily show schedule and check out all of our show pages with personal bios to learn a little bit more about each of our awesome hosts. In addition to our show pages, you can catch the IE Sports Radio blog, Hall of Fame, Fans of the Month page, and our merchandise shop, including t-shirts, tank tops, caps, long sleeves, hoodies, and more. For now over a decade here at IE Sports Radio, we've continued to be by the fans, for the fans, and we thank you all for your support and for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that is sports.
That's right, everybody. Definitely check out all of our amazing shows and all of our sponsors, and check out our website as well. And the way you can follow Setpoint on social media is on X, formerly known as Twitter, at set_point.ie. You can also follow Setpoint on TikTok at set_point.ie as well. And you can follow me personally on X at Teran Rodriguez 1. You can also follow Setpoint on Instagram at set_point.iesr. That is where I'm mainly going to be posting a lot of my content, whether it's like covering volleyball matches and putting it in the story, or whether it's possibly covering matches and my interviews where most of it's going to be held at. So there you have it right there. So that'll do. That's pretty much that for the little plugins and so on and so forth. So without any further delay, let's get on into the volleyball action. So week 10 of the NCAA men's volleyball season is now in the books, and it feels good to be back on track when it comes to the standard schedule. So I didn't really get a chance to preview week 10 last week just because I got this show. I went live later, but there were some notable matchups. So we'll kick things off on Tuesday from last Tuesday. So one of the first notable matchups we had was UC San Diego, number 11 UC San Diego taking on number 17 CSUN. It was the battle of Rob Aspero's two favorite coaches that he has on his Viral Volley Talk podcast, being Brad Rostratter of UC San Diego and Theo Edwards of CSUN. In the end, CSUN was swept by UC San Diego. It was pretty much all Tritons until the third set. Matadors really tried to keep it together in set 3, but the Tritons were able to close off the third set in overtime, as the Tritons were led by Luke Chandler, who had 15 kills. Chandler had a monster week, which you're about to see in a little bit. They also got 8 kills from Sebastiano Sani and 7 kills from Leo Prevennikov, as the Tritons wound up hitting 316, which was pretty solid if you ask me. CSUN only hit 116, as they were led by Jalen Phillips, who had 10 kills. So that was pretty much that right there for that matchup. And then also on Tuesday, we had this big-time matchup. Now, this matchup I was really tempted to go to, but unfortunately, I was just not 100%, as I just had a head cold. I think I might have had a sinus infection. Either way, I could not make it to UCLA USC at the Galen Center. So for the first set, USC was able to surprise everybody. They took the first set 25-21. Second set, UCLA was able to inch it out, winning it 25-23. Third set, USC wound up winning it 25-22. And then the fourth set was a rather interesting fourth set. So there was a call at, I think it was 10-8, where USC fed the ball to the middle, and it clearly was touched, but the officials ruled it out. Jeff Nygaard challenges it, and then USC still loses the point. So they still lose the challenge. So UCLA, instead of being down 1, they're up 3. And that call, I wouldn't say that call was the reason why USC wound up losing the set. Like, there were other reasons why USC lost the set. As this match was actually played on Big Ten Network, not Big Ten Plus, the Big Ten Network, the big caboodle, the big shebang, the big burrito. You get what I mean. The Big Ten Network, which is awesome sauce. So that was, like I said, that call wasn't the reason why USC wound up losing that match. Falling behind 5-6 points was one of the reasons why USC wound up losing that set, which is unfortunate because I think USC definitely could have won that set. Because USC actually came back. They tied it up at 24 apiece. They had 2 match points. Unfortunately, USC just could not convert. And eventually, when it was tied 28-28, UCLA got back-to-back blocks to eventually close out set 4. And man, USC missed out on a golden opportunity to win that fourth set and beat UCLA. Because if you remember last year, USC took down UCLA at Galen Center on USC Senior Night. But oh, USC, how could you do this? And then set 5 came. UCLA got off to a hot start. They led, I think it was 4-0. Regardless, UCLA was in no danger as they just built that lead rapidly and made sure USC had no chance of coming back, as UCLA took the fifth set 15-9, winning the match 3-2. So this might be as close as it gets to UCLA falling to an opponent. But UCLA is like the Kansas City Chiefs of men's volleyball from 2 seasons ago. They keep finding ways to make sure they don't lose, even though they have to lose in dramatic fashion. Even when they play some of their more worst matchups. So, like, this is the 3rd time they've gone the distance. The first time they needed a reverse sweep to take down Long Beach State. The second time they were down 2-1 to UC Irvine, and they got to a slow start in set 4, but eventually turned it around. And then this time around against USC, they dodged 2 match points, and then they eventually wound up winning it in 5. It's unreal how UCLA just continues to get it done. As Sean Kelly led the way with 21 kills, he hit 526. This kid was just unbelievable. The interesting thing is that when I interviewed Sean Kelly at UC Irvine, he said we shouldn't be going 5. I think I'm going to just say this. I think Sean Kelly might be I think Sean Kelly's never been happy to win in 5 after that match. So I keep the receipts, Sean. Just bear that in mind. Anyway, Zach Rama also had 15 kills. He was not 100% yet again, and he's still putting up good numbers. He also had 6 digs, and he also had 2 blocks. So his hitting number wasn't as great, but it is what it is. Then you had David Decker and Cam Thorne both having 11 kills. As a team, UCLA hit 299, which was solid. They also had 9 blocks, also pretty good. For USC, they were led by Dylan Klein, who had 25 kills. He had 333. They also got 11 kills from Wes Smith, who made his way back into the lineup after missing the previous 2 matches. Unfortunately, it was just not enough as USC hit 268. They also wound up having 10.5 blocks, which is pretty good, but they missed 21 serves while UCLA also missed 21 serves. So, yeah, God, if you're USC, you got to be kicking yourself saying, where did we go wrong? And I'll also just say this, Johnny Dykstra had a whopping 19 digs. This kid was unbelievable. He's only a sophomore. He's a fantastic libero. And, dude, the fact that USC lost despite Johnny Dykstra having 19 digs is just so heartbreaking. # justice for liberos. But it is what it is. And I also kind of wonder why Jeff Nygaard subbed out Caleb Blanchette when it was like in overtime. I think they subbed him out at like 28-28 or somewhere earlier in the set. So, yeah, it is what it is sometimes. But, God, UCLA is just a freaking wagon. And they're still without some of their flaws, though. I still think UCLA is still they're not unbeatable. I mean, they've proven that they have their flaws and they have their cracks. So we'll see. All right. So moving on to Wednesday, we didn't really have anything on Wednesday. Thursday, we had McKendree finally getting back into the win column, taking out Northern Kentucky in 4. Good for them for beating Northern Kentucky. Lindenwood also swept the Ohio State in straight sets. This was number 10 Lindenwood sweeping number 15 Ohio State. And I actually forgot about this matchup when I posted my graphic. See, this is why this is what happens when I have an off week, where if one thing is off about me, then the entire week is going to go to Cali Wampus. But yeah, the Lindenwood Lions, they just continue to win. And that winning at Covalli Center is never an easy place to win at. As Brandon Luthane led the way with 11 kills. Luke Kraft also added 9 kills. Lindenwood as a team, they hit 377, courtesy of Zach Solomon's 30 assists. He also had 3 service aces, which was really good. Lincoln Geist also had 12 digs, so another big plus for Lindenwood. For Ohio State, they're led by Shane Wetzel and Stanislaw Chichinski, both having 9 kills. They also got 7 kills from Daniel Hurley. Unfortunately, it was not enough, as the Buckeyes, they still can't find that consistency. They have the team on paper. It's just a matter of finding consistency on the court. Speaking of Miva Mania, we also had Loyola Chicago sweeping number 8 Loyola Chicago sweeping number 9 Ball State, which was a massive win by the Ramblers. And this was this might be an actual de facto matchup for the Miva, as Daniel Fabakovic led the way with 13 kills. Tyler Howard added 10 kills. Like I mentioned last show, Ryan McElligott is back. He had 36 assists. That's massive for the Ramblers. No offense to Alex Smits Van Noyen. As a team, Loyola hit 456, which is just nasty for defenses. And the crazy thing is that Ball State, they hit 475, yet they got swept. All the sets were close, though. They were decided by 4 or less points, especially set 3, which was decided by 2. As Patrick Rogers led the way with 10 kills. They also got 9 kills from Will Basilio and then 6 kills from Ryan Lewis. But it wasn't enough, as the Ramblers were able to take down the Cardinals. And then you had the Lewis Flyers taking down Purdue Fort Wayne. So this was the number 14 Lewis Flyers taking down number 19 Purdue Fort Wayne in 3, which is just another solid win. I mean, the sets were fairly close, but Lewis had their way. Still no O's on O's, as Cameron Hoying led the way with 17 kills. Like I said, he's a setter converted to opposite, considering the O's on O's injury really hurts Lewis's depth on the right side. But he's really done a great job in terms of hitting on the right side. Hoying also hit 379, and he also had 2 service aces. Daniel Haver also had 8 kills. Dejan Todorov added 7 kills. The Flyers hit 325, which was pretty solid. Only missed 14 serves, and they also had 9 blocks. Purdue Fort Wayne was held to only 3 blocks. They only hit 188, as they were led by Logan Muir, who had 11 kills. Casey Lyons added 7 kills to that category. So Lewis, don't look now, but Lewis kind of caught fire. So before I continue on to Friday's matches, let's backtrack to Wednesday. So Wednesday, we had this nutty of a fruitcake matchup. We had number 7 Pepperdine playing at number 3 Hawaii. And man, the way I picked a great night to stay up, even though I needed my rest, as Pepperdine really showed up in the first couple sets. As they took a dramatic first set, 28-26. They rallied back from, I think, 4 points down to eventually take set 2, 25-22. Third set was all Hawaii. Hawaii really just woke up and took down Pepperdine, winning set 3, 25-15. And then the fourth set came. A lot of opportunities happening. I think Hawaii had 2 set points. I think Pepperdine had 5 match points. But in the end, the Waves were able to take that fourth set 30-28. Lots of heroics. but lots of missed serves on Hawaii's part as Pepperdine was led by Cole Hartke, who had 24 kills. Ryan Barnett also had 13 kills. Jose Gomez added 11 kills. Jacob Riley also had 12 digs. What a masterful performance by him. He also had 7 assists as well. Andre Pulamat had 12 digs to go along with his 43 assists as Pepperdine hit 270 while Hawaii hit 328, which is pretty surprising. Anyway, Trent Rosenthal had himself another big boy game. He had 13 digs and 42 assists along with 6 kills. Luis Sakanoko had 15 kills and 7 digs. Kainoa Wade continues his stellar gameplay. He actually started off really slow, and then he really picked up his game. He finished with 19 kills. He hit 350, and he had 9 digs. Adrian Rohr had 10 kills. Not the flashiest Adrian Rohr numbers, but he also excelled in serving. He had 3 service aces, which was massive. But going back to this matchup, this was a massive win for Pepperdine, especially since I kind of had my doubts about them since they lost to UC Santa Barbara. And most of their other Big West Conference losses had come, or most of their other conferences had come from the Big West Conference as well. So you had that right there. But Pepperdine, they're still contenders. And Cole Hartke is probably the best opposite in the nation. There's no doubting that. And I think unless you can find me another opposite better than Cole Hartke, I don't think there is. Anyway, so looking at Friday's matchup, we had round 2 between UCLA and USC, as the Bruins did need 5 this time. They wound up taking down USC in 4, and thankfully for UCLA's sake, they didn't need 5, as the first set was really tight, but UCLA was able to grind it out. Second set, USC was able to grind that set out and win it by 2 points, 25-23. Third set and fourth set were pretty much all UCLA. They got off to an early lead and didn't look back. I should also mention that UCLA and USC both honored Braun Levy, a former Loyola High School boys volleyball team manager and tennis standout who's going to play tennis at University of Virginia. But unfortunately, his life was tragically cut short by a drunk driver, which is very sad, and I feel awful for the parents. And, you know, this Braun Levy just brought a lot of energy. I never knew who Braun Levy was, but he loved what he did. And that's why we all had a saying. Well, that's why the whole saying is live like Braun. And I also will just mention, I kind of lived like Braun too on Friday, where I actually walked 8 miles from my house to elsewhere. I'm not going to give out the location just so you all don't stalk me, but I digress. But yeah, I walked 8 miles and I was feeling tired and fatigued, and I was just thinking of just stopping my walk and just taking the bus. But then I thought to myself, what would Braun Levy do? He'd want to continue to push, because I remember watching the documentary or watching some sort of like something on, like, I think it was like NBC, where Braun Levy ran in a marathon, and even though he had like a bunch of blisters on his feet, he finished the marathon, and it was just absolutely stunning that he did that. And he couldn't walk for 2 weeks, but he was able to finish the marathon, which is awesome. So I thought to myself, if Braun Levy could finish a marathon, I should be able to walk 8 miles as well. And I was able to push through, even though I was tired, even though I was fatigued, even though it was a little warm. I was able to live like Braun and finish my 8 miles, which was awesome sauce. So that's my little story of live like Braun. And I think everyone should live like Braun Levy. So there you have it right there. But for round 2 between UCLA and USC, the Gutty Little Bruins were led by Zach Rama, who had 19 kills. He hit 436. Solid numbers right there. Hopefully he's fully better, because hopefully his teammates don't get sick. Sean Kelly also had 7 kills. He hit 343. David Decker had 12 kills. He hit 500, and he had 10 digs. As a team, UCLA hit 416, and there was over 5,000 in attendance, which was really awesome if you ask me. For USC, they were led by Dylan Klein, who had 16 kills. Sterling Foley, who was wearing a different jersey number, he had 10 kills. I should actually make this note, and this was actually a nice little fun fact from Set the Bick on, it was Set the Bick. Set the Bick on Instagram. Follow him if you are interested in NCAA men's volleyball related posts. He said that USC moved to 0-2 and Sterling Foley wears a jersey number different than his usual number 12. So in the first match, I think it was like early set 4 where Sterling Foley did kind of rip his jersey. I think he got blocked and then he kind of ripped his jersey, kind of like how Louis Sakanoko did one time. But I digress. But don't look now, but USC has now lost 3 straight. After they started the season off 8-0, they've now lost 3 in a row, which is, I wouldn't say it's a little concerning. It just means that USC is kind of not on that echelon of S tier. Like, they're A tier in terms of like contending for a national championship. And I definitely think that USC can contend for a national championship. The only problem is that can they exceed the level of UCLA? Can they also exceed the level of Long Beach State, Hawaii, UC Irvine? They split. How will they fare against Pepperdine when Pepperdine comes to town, or when they have to go for the home and home series against the Waves? Like, a lot of things are going to have to come into fruition when it comes to this USC team. Like, I really want to see what this USC team can do. And it's been a minute since they've had a Final Four run. The last time they made the Final Four was 2012. That's 14 years ago. This will be 14 years to this day where they last made a Final Four run. So USC is due for another Final Four run, and I really want them to, get to the Final Four, because Dylan Klein deserves a chance at a national championship, because he definitely has the talent, and he probably will be playing on the U.S. men's national team in the near future. So we got to get my boy Dylan to the national championship in terms of or at least the Final Four in terms of playing, but we shall see. Jumping to the Big West, we had UC Santa Barbara, number 12 UC Santa Barbara, outlasting number 11 UC San Diego in 5. This was a very fun matchup, and it shows that the Gauchos are for real, as UC Santa Barbara was led by George Bruin, who had 19 kills. He had 324. Riggs guy had 10 kills. He had 5 service aces and 8 digs. He was stuffing that stat sheet pretty nicely. Ethan Saint had 12 kills and 5 digs. As a team, the Gauchos hit 288, and they had 15 service aces, as Dylan Pilkvist had 4 service aces, which was really good. Saint had 3 service aces, which was nice. So he had that right there. UC San Diego was led by Sebastian Osani, who had 16 kills. Luke Chandler had 15 kills. Leo Prevennikov had 10 kills. As a team, the Tritons hit 364, but it was not enough, as the Gauchos were able to defend the Thunderdome, and they were able to win, which was a great win on behalf of the Gauchos. So closing off Friday's matches, we had round 2 between Pepperdine and Hawaii. Apparently this was revenge. This was the revenge day or payback day on last Friday, because Hawaii was able to take down Pepperdine in 4 sets. Now, this was a crazy matchup. So first set, Pepperdine was leading, and then eventually Hawaii was able to make a massive turnaround, and they were able to take that first set 25-22. I think Pepperdine was at 16-14, and eventually Hawaii went on a 7-0 run, something of that sort. Either way, Hawaii was able to take that first set. Pepperdine eventually took the second set 25-21. I think that was also the case where Hawaii was leading, and then Pepperdine was able to make a nice little run to eventually push the set their way. Third set kind of was like an instant replay of set 3 when it came to Pepperdine Hawaii on Wednesday, as Hawaii was able to take that third set 25-15. Fourth set, Hawaii led most of the way, but Pepperdine caught them when it truly mattered. I think Hawaii had match point at 24-22. Eventually, Pepperdine tied it up at 24 apiece. And then there was just a lot of amazing hustle plays and rallies. And, man, I'll also just say Jonathan Winder is an amazing coach, because he knows when to challenge and when to not challenge. Just every time Hawaii had a certain point, or they had clinched the match, Jonathan Winder said, "Not so fast, my friend." And he challenged it, and eventually there was the right call. And eventually Hawaii was able to close out set 4 by winning it 36-34. That was just unbelievable. It was well worth staying up, just like Wednesday's matchup. I think that was like another 3-hour match as well, which was pretty awesome, as Hawaii was able to win it in 4 sets. Charlie Wade even said in the postgame, maybe we can spend more money on the on the more improved technology for replay systems. So all in all, it was still a good win for Hawaii, and it was still a solid week for Pepperdine, as the Bows were led by Kainoa Wade, who had 19 kills. Adrian Rohr had 15 kills. Travell Jordan also had 15 kills, which was a career high. And because Travell Jordan had 15 kills, Kanoha Leahy, the play-by-play guy for not only ESPN Plus, but for Spectrum Sports Hawaii, he actually lost a bet with Chris McLaughlin, where he was going to wear a suit to Hawaii's men's basketball match the following day. And eventually he did lose that bet. He said, if Travell Jordan surpasses his career high in kills, I'm wearing a suit. And Kanoa Leahy, I want to see pictures of Kanoa Leahy in that suit. I really want to see pictures. Unfortunately, I didn't see that match just because I was busy on Saturday, but I digress. Anyway, Louis Sakanoko had 12 kills. He also added 6 digs. Teran Rosenthal had another big boy game. He had 4 service aces, 56 assists, 9 digs, and 6 kills. Absolutely amazing performance. We all got to remember that Teran Rosenthal is still one of the best setters in the nation. I think he's a sleeper setter. I mean, Andrew Rowan clearly is the best setter in the nation, but Teran Rosenthal is not too far back. Meanwhile, for Pepperdine, they were led by Cole Harkey, who had 20 kills. Jose Gomez and Ryan Barnett both had 13 kills. Andre Polamont had 43 assists to go along with 8 digs. Unfortunately, it was just not enough as Pepperdine salvaged a split. I will say this, Pepperdine only missed 11 serves, which is pretty good. If you only miss 11 serves, either you're actually serving pretty decent or you're throwing up easy serves to the point where Hawaii is able to capitalize on that. But I digress. So a solid series right there overall from both teams. I think Hawaii is still a contender, and I think Pepperdine can still contend as well. It's just a matter of coming up big when it matters most. Then we had this five-set barn burner between Ball State and Lewis. Another great win right here for the Cardinals, and they cooled off Lewis because I think Lewis had won like 4 or 5 matches in a row. And Lewis actually went up 2-1 in the match, but Ball State was able to play its best ball when it mattered most, as Patrick Rogers led the way with 26 kills. Ryan Lewis added 16 kills. Victor Shearer added 13 digs. Will Basilio had 10 digs to go along with 7 kills. Lucas Machado had 49 assists. And then for Lewis, they were led by Cameron Hoying, who had 19 kills to go along with 8 assists and 3 service aces. And he had 9 digs, so he was nearing a triple-double. We are still waiting on that triple-double right there in terms of NCAA men's volleyball. Diego Estrada had 33 assists to go along with 10 digs. Nico Paula had 15 digs, which was great. Dejan Todorov had 14 kills, but it wasn't enough as Lewis fell to Ball State on its home floor. But it's a massive win for the Cardinals because that keeps them within striking distance of Lindenwood, who is now leading the MIVA. Speaking of leading the MIVA, we had another fascinating matchup. So McKendree, number 13 McKendree, took down number 15 Ohio State in straight sets. So this is actually McKendree's first win in Covalli Center. Apparently they've won at Ohio State, but this is actually their first win in Covalli Center, from what I'm hearing. Anyway, for McKendree, they were led by Bryce Wetjen, who had 13 kills. Sam Hoskin added 11 kills. Roland Lavely added 8 kills. As a team, McKendree didn't have the greatest hitting percentage. They only hit .233, but they actually had 10 service aces to only 12 service errors. 5 of those service aces went to Nathan Flater. He also had 13 digs, which actually surpassed him for 500 digs in a season, which is awesome if you ask me. Like, Nathan Flater is one of the more underrated setters in my opinion. I think he's obviously a member of the watch list for the AVCA National Player of the Year, but I don't think he gets a lot of credit just because he has to contend with the likes of Andrew Rowan, Teran Rosenthal, and a bunch of other talented setters as well. And then for Ohio State, they were led by Daniel Hurley and Shane Wetzel, both having 10 kills. Eliel Salvatores had 8 kills. Solid hitting percentage. He hit .583. But Ohio State, as a team, they only hit .216. And they only had, they had a lot of block attempts. They had 10.5 block attempts to McKendree's 8. So it wasn't a matter of Ohio State wasn't the better team. It's just that they just couldn't come up big because most of those sets were all close. So a tough loss for Ohio State as they're kind of going in the wrong direction. Meanwhile, McKendree is going in the right direction. They've now won 2 straight. So before I continue on with the matchup that I went to last Saturday, there was another MIVA matchup. So we had number 19 Purdue Fort Wayne taking down number 8 Loyola Chicago in 4 sets, which was massive. So Loyola took the first set in close fashion, but then it was all Mastodons for the most part in sets 2, 3, and 4, as PFW was led by Carlo Huiston and Logan Muir, both having 10 kills. They got 8 kills from Owen Banner. As a team, the Mastodons hit 250. They had 8 service aces, and they had a whopping 15 blocks as a team. That is massive. Well, they only held Loyola to a whopping 6.5 blocks. The Ramblers also missed 23 serves. They only had 3 service aces, as Loyola was led by Aiden Klein and Daniel Fabakovic, both having 9 kills. And as a team, Loyola hit only 135. So just when we all thought Loyola was heading in the right direction, they're now heading in the wrong direction. As with this loss, Lindenwood is all alone in first place in the MIVA, which is awesome sauce. It just shows that the MIVA is maybe the more exciting conferences in all of NCAA men's volleyball Division 1-2. Before we go on into the matchup that I went to last Saturday, I actually have to acknowledge Marcus Losgret. He says salute to you too, sir. Thank you for popping in. I actually want to go over this matchup. Belmont Abbey, yes, Belmont Abbey, the Crusaders. I think that's the Crusaders. They took down George Mason in straight sets, which was very impressive. Now, Belmont Abbey hasn't really had too many standoutish wins. They've only lost 2 matches this season. So the fact that they were able to pull off that win was pretty incredible, as Belmont Abbey was led by Caden Day, who had 12 kills. Joseph Morris had 29 assists. He also had a double. I think he had a double-double against Queens last Tuesday. Belmont Abbey as a team, they hit 301. They also had 8 blocks, and they only missed 13 serves, which is pretty good. Meanwhile, for George Mason, they were led by Robert Evangelista, who had 10 kills. They also got 7 kills from Elijah Lazor, but it wasn't enough. And this is where George Mason really misses Liam French, because French is, man, in case you all don't know, Liam French is out for the year. He suffered a non-contact knee injury against the likes of, I think it was Queens. Either way, it was definitely a tough loss for George Mason, not just that match, but losing Liam French as well. Anyway, so now let's go over the matchup that I went to last Saturday. So I went to Long Beach State, Penn State. This match, surprisingly, was not televised, so it wasn't streamed, which was kind of surprising. I didn't know it was going to be streamed until I was on my way there, where one of my friends, who was actually a former Long Beach State men's volleyball player, he texted me, yeah, that match isn't being streamed, Teran, and I regret not sending him any updates, so oops. Anyway, it was also Paul Lottman night, as they honored Paul Lottman, and it was a very fun night. I actually regret not not putting any overlay photos, but yeah, talking about that night, it was a pretty fun night when it came to Paul Lottman getting honored. I think it was really cool, and his jersey is now officially raised in the banners of the LBS Pyramid. I'm not even going to try to pronounce it by the actual name. I'm just going to call it the Pyramid. I don't care what anyone says. It's called the Pyramid, and I'm still going to refer to it as the Pyramid. And there you have it right there, ladies and gentlemen. Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to take a picture of the banner that was unveiled. I did have it on video, which was cool, but unfortunately, I just couldn't get a picture of the actual photo of the banner being unveiled. I mean, it's on video. It's on my Instagram account. It's not really the greatest quality photo just because I took it from an iPhone, but I don't care. So anyway, yeah, and now that my picks have been uploaded, here are some picks. I don't know the two people on the far right and second to the right, but I know the guy on the far left is Tom Hoff, whose jersey was also raised into the rafters a couple of years ago. And then Paul Ottman's the one second to the left. And then here's Paul Ottman before the match. And then here's that's another duplicate photo. And then before the match, I actually got a picture of Alan Knipe, Mark Pavlik, and Ray Rattel, former Long Beach State coaches. And then here's Paul Ottman during the ceremony as he was talking. So you had that right there. And then I've got the funniest thing I have to show you all. And it kind of makes me embarrassed to be a Long Beach State men's volleyball alum. You all are about to laugh at this. So before the match, Long Beach State, in addition to honoring Paul Ottman, they actually honored Mark Pavlik because this is his last season. And Mark Pavlik is a living legend, and he's just a really down-to-earth coach. Amazing coach. I mean, an even more amazing human being. But before the match started, unfortunately, Long Beach State made the worst mistake they could have ever made. And this was it. They put Mike Pavlik instead of Mark Pavlik. Mike Pavlik. Long Beach State, you had one job, and then you decided to put Mike Pavlik instead of Mark Pavlik. I was able to get that on video, and I was able to take a screenshot of that. And it made Mark's day. Mike Pavlik. Pepperdine and USC, you better not make this same mistake. If you do, then you might go down as fail of the week right there as well. But how do you make this mistake? Mike Pavlik. Who made this mistake? It just doesn't make any sense. How do you mess up Mike Pavlik for Mark Pavlik? Oh my God. I'm sorry. I just had to make note of that. Everyone kind of got a kick out of that. But in the end, Mark Pavlik did get a token of appreciation. I think he got like a Long Johns for Penn State Long Johns, and that reminds me, I got to get him something before he rides off into the sunset. So, I'll do so this upcoming Saturday. But as for the Long Beach State Penn State match, Penn State really brought the fight in set one. Unfortunately, Long Beach State was able to outlast Penn State in the first set, 26-24. And then the rest of the way was pretty much all Long Beach State, as Penn State was just getting pressurized from the service line all night, as Jackson Christ had a lot of great service pressure. They also got serving pressure from Alex Kondev, Braden Marquardt, Wojciech Gajek. The list goes on and on. So overall, it was just one of those nights for Penn State. Long Beach State, on the other hand, they didn't even need to hit 240. They hit over 250. They hit 244, and they still wound up winning. They held Penn State to only a hitting percentage of 133, and they only held them to one service ace. But I will say Matt Luoma did have a solid match. He had 9 digs to go along with 7 kills. It wasn't anyone that was truly standoutish when it came to Penn State. But Long Beach State, they were led by Skylar Varga, who had 11 kills. They also had 6 kills from Alex Kondev and Wojciech Gajek, as it was just business as usual for Long Beach State. They also got some nice support from, I think it was like over 2,500 in attendance for that match, which was pretty solid. And they also got support from LSU's beach volleyball team, because if you know, one of LSU's beach volleyball players is Zaina Meyer, who is the girlfriend of Skylar Varga. In addition, LSU was actually in town. They actually were playing in Los Angeles for the MPSF mid-season showdown at USC, which I'll get into in a little bit. But yeah, LSU beach volleyball was in the house supporting Long Beach State. So very happy right there. And that was that matchup right there. And then Sunday, we didn't have too much. All we just had was NJIT beating St. Thomas Aquinas in 4. So that is that for week 10 of the NCAA men's volleyball season, or week 9, whatever you prefer. I still think it's week 10 just because Week 1 obviously started with NJIT, Hawaii, as well as Trine, Ball State, and then also Hawaii NJIT round 2. All right, now let's go to the AVCA men's volleyball poll. So, interesting poll this week. So, despite Hawaii losing, they're still number 3. Despite USC losing twice, they're still number 5. Despite Pepperdine beating Hawaii, they didn't move up. Lindenwood moved up 2 spots and is tied for Loyola at number 8, which is solid. Lindenwood is also being tied for number 8, is actually their highest they've been ranked in terms of their team's history, which I think is really cool. Purdue Fort Wayne, despite beating Loyola, they wound up not moving any spots, which is pretty lame if you ask me. I think, and I know what everyone's saying. Loyola didn't have Alexander Sosa. I get it. That's his valid excuse, but I'm also going to say everyone's battling injuries, so that's not really a full-on valid excuse. Anyway, so yeah, that's pretty much that for the AVCA poll. UC Santa Barbara jumped UC San Diego, which is pretty cool. Lewis has remained the same, and yeah, pretty much nothing too out of the ordinary other than Lindenwood having the biggest jump of the week. So that's going to the off the block media poll. I actually went over it last week. So who I voted for this week's poll, I'm hoping this week I can actually have the same ballot as the poll itself. As obviously I voted UCLA 1, Long Beach State 2. I think I put Hawaii. I think that's a mistake. I think I put UC Irvine at 3 instead of Hawaii at 3. So let me just change that real quick. Maybe I can confirm that as well. So just gonna change this up. And then put Hawaii at number 4. So yeah, unless of course I made a mistake and I actually still put UC or Hawaii at number 4, which if that's the case, then oops. So yeah, I'm actually going to show you all my ballot. Yeah, I put UC Irvine at number 3. So yeah, UC Irvine is at number 3. So here's my ballot right here. Don't judge my my screenshot. But yeah, back to the actual graphic. Yeah, I put UC Irvine at number 3 just because I think they're deserving. They almost beat UCLA. Hawaii lost to Loyola, and they also lost to Pepperdine on their home floor in 4. Meanwhile, UC Irvine's losses are to USC and UCLA, both in 5 on their home floor as well. But still, that's still a little bit more valid. So, yeah, and then I put Pepperdine at 6, BYU 7. I put Lindenwood at 8. I think they're deserving of number 8 because they're leading the MIVA, and even though Ball State beat them, I still think Ball State just recently lost to Loyola, and they needed 5 to beat Lewis. So I put Ball State at 9, and then I put Loyola at 10 just because they just lost to Purdue for Fort Wayne. And I was really close to putting UC Santa Barbara at number 10. But honestly, I still think Loyola deserves to have that number 10 spot for the time being. But if they have another bad loss or loss that is an upset, I got to take Loyola out of the top 10. So that's my top 10 right there. Let me know what you all think of my top 10 off the block media poll. So now let's preview week 11 of the NCAA men's volleyball season. So it actually starts tonight with a pretty notable matchup right here. We have Princeton playing at UC San Diego, number 12 UC San Diego. That's a sneaky good matchup, and it's actually the second time Princeton has been on the West Coast. So they get 2 West Coast trips. I think they're on spring break this week. I think the first one was just to start the season. So I think it's still pretty cool if you ask me. But yeah, Princeton at UC San Diego, that's going to be an intriguing matchup. I think Princeton, if they play their cards right, they can catch UC San Diego on an off night. But if we get the UC San Diego that we saw last week, then we might see UC San Diego winning fairly easy. But I think UC San Diego should not underestimate Princeton by any means. Princeton is a solid team. They're hungry. And this could be a trap game because UC San Diego has another important match this week. But that's for later. And then Tuesday, we have a sneaky good matchup. We have Belmont Abbey at McKendree, which I think is a really good matchup. If Belmont Abbey wants to really prove itself as I wouldn't say a contender, but they're receiving votes in the AVCA poll. But if they really want to prove themselves as a team that really deserves to win, the Conference Carolinas, and they deserve to make the NCAA tournament convincingly, I mean, they'll obviously get the automatic qualifier if they win their tournament. A win over McKendree would go a long way. And then we jump to Wednesday. We have Princeton at CSUN as another notable matchup, which I think is a pretty solid matchup. That could also be a trap game for CSUN because they've got an important matchup later on in the week as well. Then you've also got Belmont Abbey at Lindenwood. Just like the McKendree matchup, if Belmont Abbey wants to prove its legitimacy, a win over Lindenwood would be so incredible right there. But now let's go over the ranked on ranked matchup. So we'll start off we'll start off with this matchup. We have number 11 UC Santa Barbara at number 4 UC Irvine. The two teams will also face each other on Friday in Santa Barbara. I think this is an incredible matchup right here. Many will think, well, Irvine should win this one easy. Not so fast. Santa Barbara is actually starting to come into their own. They have a 3-set win over Pepperdine. They beat UC San Diego in 5. Can they beat UC Irvine at the Bren? That's the biggest thing right there. Will UC Irvine have another match where they get like a good number, like they get a good showing? I'm sure they won't get 4,000 plus attendance just because it's a weekday matchup, but I think if they can get a good solid showing, that can go a long way for them. But yeah, I think this one is probably series of the week because I don't think there are any other notable series this week, but I digress. And then also on Wednesday, we have number 15 Penn State heading down to Malibu to take on number 6 Pepperdine. The last thing Pepperdine needs is a loss where against an opponent that they should probably beat easily. And Penn State is hungry for a win. Like, they're playing these tough opponents just because they want to be ready for when they play the big-time opponents when it comes to the NCAA tournament or when it comes down to the EIVA tournament. Because in order to make the NCAA tournament, you got to win your conference tournament, being the EIVA, because I don't think EIVA is going to be taking 2 teams. Or the NCAA tournament isn't going to be taking 2 teams from the EIVA. But Penn State could really use a big-time win, and a win over Pepperdine would be massive. They could catch Pepperdine in terms of a possible Hawaii hangover, but we'll have to wait and see. And then Thursday, you have Ohio State at Ball State. That's an interesting matchup. So Ball State still needs the win in order to remain on the coattail of Lindenwood, while Ohio State needs some sort of like momentum booster. A win like that would definitely be helpful for the Buckeyes, but Ball State is not going to be pulling any punches. You also have on Thursday USC at Concordia Irvine, which I might be able to attend, but I can't guarantee anything. We'll wait and see. And then I'll wait till later because we got a big time event this weekend. And then on Friday we have number 7 BYU at number 18 Stanford on Friday and on Saturday. So this is actually a rematch of last year's MPSF tournament quarterfinals. So if you remember last year, BYU lost in the quarterfinals of the MPSF tournament, and that was bad, dude. I'm not saying Stanford was bad. I'm saying the loss was bad for BYU because they could have easily probably gotten into the semifinals. They could have easily made their way to the semifinals, and they could have given themselves a good chance at beating USC. But that was not the case. BYU wound up losing to Stanford, and Stanford went on and unfortunately lost to USC, which eventually lost to Pepperdine, which eventually went on to the Final Four. There you have it. So I imagine BYU is going to be angry when they see Stanford on the floor. So expect a lot of fire in the bellies of the Cougars just because they know they probably remember last year. If not, then that's probably in the back of their minds. And then also on Friday, we have, like I mentioned, number 4 UC Irvine at number 11 UC Santa Barbara. That's a fun little Big West Conference match right there. Also, in terms of the Big West Conference on Friday, we have number 12 UC San Diego at number 17 CSUN. So it's round 2 between the 2 viral volley podcast co-hosts between Theo Edwards and Brad Rostrader. This should be a fun matchup. I mean, CSUN needs a big time win. I mean, they've proven that they can be legitimate this season, But of all the Big West Conference teams this year, I think they're kind of the weakest link. So they need a big-time win in the Big West Conference to shake that weakest link label off them. So there you have it right there. That's what I think of that matchup. And then I guess there's William Jessup at Long Beach State. I think they play on Wednesday, or I'm sorry, not Wednesday, Thursday and no, I guess it's Friday and Saturday. So Friday and Saturday, Jessup is playing Long Beach State. And Saturday, you've got the Ohio State, number 16, Ohio State at Purdue Fort Wayne, number 19, Purdue Fort Wayne. All right, this could be an interesting matchup. So Ohio State has a chance to get back into the win column, but Purdue Fort Wayne, they're playing really good ball as of late. So if Ohio State thinks that this is going to be an easy peasy lemon squeezy matchup, then they've got another thing coming. I think Purdue Fort Wayne's going to be playing their best ball against Ohio State, especially since Ohio State's coming in wounded, licking their wounds. And then also on Saturday, we have, like I said, number 7 BYU at number 18 Stanford. And then we've got number 15 Penn State at number 5 USC. That's going to be a 5 p.m. start time, but I'm going to be at that match regardless just because that's going to be a fun matchup. And it could be the last time I see Mark Pavlik coach. And it'll be very sad once when it finally hits us that Mark Pavlik's not coaching anymore. And I will have something for Mark Pavlik. I guarantee it. Guaranteed. All right. But that's not it in terms of the NCAA Men's Volleyball Week 11 preview. So we have the Outrigger Invitational, which starts on Thursday. So Thursday, we have number 1 UCLA playing number 14 Lewis, which I think should be a pretty solid matchup. Now, that matchup is not going to be nationally broadcasted or streamed, which sucks. So I imagine someone's going to get creative and they're going to stream it on their iPhone, which hopefully they come prepared. So there you have it right there when it comes to that matchup. I think UCLA should not underestimate Lewis. Lewis was playing its best volleyball before the loss to Ball State, but I think Lewis can definitely push UCLA. If UCLA lives on the edge and they play kind of reckless like they did against SC, UCI, and Long Beach the first go around, or for UCI's case the only go around, then for the point of UCLA they could find themselves in a predicament against Lewis. But I think for Lewis, I think this should be business as usual for UCLA, but don't underestimate Lewis. And then also on Thursday we have Mount Olive taking on number 3 Hawaii. I mean, other than Luca Colombo, who is arguably one of the better liberos in the nation, this should be Hawaii's win. It's green team versus green team. So, by the way, that's kind of the reason why I have this titled the way it's supposed to be titled. Outrigger with the old week, Bruin with the new week, which you're about to see. But yeah, I'd be shocked if Mount Olive managed to make it close against Hawaii. Well, I shouldn't say that. I mean, Hawaii should handle business as usual, especially after coming off of a big win over Pepperdine. They just can't afford to just have too many silly mistakes. Then we jump to Friday. We have number 1 UCLA playing Mount Olive in the third match of the Outrigger Invitational, day 2 of the Outrigger. If UCLA really needs another set to beat Mount Olive, then I'm concerned. But yeah, I think this should be business as usual for the UCLA. Again, nothing against Mount Olive, but I just think that they're facing some big dogs. They're facing some they're now swimming in shark-infested waters. And then also on Friday, we have number 14 Lewis playing at number 3 Hawaii. This should be an interesting matchup. I think Lewis, look, if they can catch Hawaii on a bad night, if they catch Hawaii making mistake after mistake after mistake after mistake, then I think Lewis might be able to take down Hawaii. But if Hawaii plays like they have been playing in terms of crossing their T's and dotting their I's, and if they play like they did against BYU, Hawaii will not be losing by any means. And then we jump to Saturday. We have Mount Olive taking on number 14 Lewis. I imagine one of those teams are going to be getting their first win of the Outrigger Invitational. I can't imagine nothing else being the case when it comes to that. So you have that right there. And then to close off the Outrigger Invitational, you have the supposedly sold out matchup. Number 1 UCLA playing number 3 Hawaii. we have been waiting for this matchup since the NIL tournament was announced. And because the NIL tournament, unfortunately, was sadly canceled, we couldn't get UCLA Hawaii round one. So this is the only meeting between these two teams. It's actually a rematch of last year's Final Four matchup between the Bruins and the Bows, where UCLA was able to take down the Bows in straight sets. But I imagine, Stan Sheriff Center is going to be packed. There's going to be a lot of white and green. It's going to be explosive. And man, I am envious. Like, this is still on my bucket list of things I want to do as a volleyball content creator. Go to a sold out or packed Hawaii men's volleyball matchup at Stan Sheriff Center. I really want it to happen. I hope it can happen. I definitely think it can happen. I need it to happen. I need to be there, but unfortunately I won't be. But I'll have more opportunities where I can make it to big-time volleyball events. We shall see. Besides, I'll be seeing Hawaii in a couple more weeks when Hawaii plays Long Beach State, so I shouldn't be bellyaching too much. So that's that for the NCAA men's volleyball season, or not volleyball season. That's that for week 11 of the NCAA men's volleyball season. We have 13 ranked-unranked matchups confirmed this time. I think it's going to be a very, very fun week, and I imagine there's going to be a lot of fireworks. So that'll do it for week 11 of the NCAA men's volleyball season. We're going to take ourselves a commercial break. When we come back, we've got some NCAA beach volleyball to discuss. Then we've got some pro volleyball to discuss from the MLV and then LOVB. And then we've got a little high school volleyball to discuss. So keep it locked here. You were listening to Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. We'll be right back after this.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Davidson.
It's your boy, Dentarius Lava.
And we're the hosts of Fast Break here on IE Sports Radio, where we discuss everything in the world of basketball from prep to the pros.
You guys should definitely check us out, man. Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. We got all the basketball information you guys need, so we look forward to you guys listening in.
And please do, because we are the best basketball show on this side of the Mississippi. And please do check us out on Twitter at FastBreakISR. D-Lock, where's our time again?
8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. That gives you guys plenty of time on a Sunday.
Tune in.
Hockey fans, I'm Adam Kernick.
And I'm Zach Puplis.
Together, we are the newest version of Hockey Talk on IE Sports Radio, The Neutral Zone.
Zone.
We love hockey, but we also know it's not everyone's first sport. So we want to make this show as much for new fans as for the diehards.
Whether you can name all the Swedes on the 08 Red Wings Stanley Cup team, or if you can't tell if Varlamov is a goalie or the latest trendy vodka, we're here to help. With facts, figures, and outrageous fans, we bring you all the hard-hitting hockey news you can handle, while still keeping it fun and on the rails. Well, mostly.
So tune in every week as we go around the hockey world, from college to Canada, the minors and the majors, and everywhere in between.
So bring your cellies.
And your one-timers.
You wicked wristas.
And be sure to protect your five-hole.
Catch the Neutral Zone every week on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
We promise not to pick on the Arizona Coyotes every episode.
Hello, everyone. My name is Daryl Kinsey Jr., and I'm welcoming you to take another lap with the fastest show on IE Sports Radio. Yes, this is the Extra Mile with me and my co-hosts Christopher Lehman and Michael Ward. We talk everything racing from NASCAR to IndyCar to Formula One to limited hydroplanes, endurance racing, the NHRA, and more. So come join us for an hour of great racing talk and a lot of fun as well on the Extra Mile, Thursdays at 8 p.m. only on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Everybody, this is Teran Rodriguez. Are you a fan of volleyball? Are you a fan of Thunderous Spikes? Then I have the show for you, Set Point, where I cover NCAA men's and women's volleyball, high school boys and girls volleyball, beach volleyball, and even professional volleyball. Catch the action every week here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Back with segment number 2 of Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. Definitely check out all of our amazing shows and also check out our website as well. So let's jump on into a little bit of some NCAA beach volleyball. As we all know, I actually talked about the poll on last week's episode, as Arizona State is still the only undefeated team left in the poll, which is pretty solid. They had themselves a solid week. They actually handed Nebraska their first loss in a duel in 30 attempts, which is pretty nice. I think it was actually 31 attempts. So yeah, there's the AVCA poll right there. Stanford was still number 1, but you're about to see that actually is going to be changing tomorrow. So just going to make a correction here. All right, but yeah. I mentioned Stanford. They actually lost to UCLA this past weekend in the MPSF mid-season rumble. So, yikes. Stanford, number 1 Stanford couldn't keep it up against UCLA, which it shows that the UCLA is legitimacy. This shows that UCLA is 110% legit. And honestly, they may be young, but honestly, this team is still very much dangerous. And UCLA had a great weekend last week. Same with USC. LMU also was able to pull off 2 wins against Long Beach State, which is tough for the beach. LSU and Washington didn't really have the best of weeks, unfortunately. Texas, unfortunately, lost a tough one to Stanford, 3-2. Arizona State, like I mentioned, they are still undefeated. Arizona also took down Nebraska as well. Not that that's too much to write home about, just because that's their indoor team playing beach volleyball, and they're not really known all that much for beach volleyball, but I digress. But Arizona State is going to get tested. They face UCLA this week, and then also UCLA faces the likes of LSU and Texas, which I think is going to be really tough for the gutty little Bruins. But I definitely think UCLA has a chance to – they're going to be number 1 tomorrow. If they're not number 1 in the AVCA poll, then I need to know why. I need to know why. Because I know Stanford doesn't have a win over UCLA. I know UCLA still has that loss to Hawaii. But still, I imagine UCLA has to be number 1. Like, I need a logical explanation of why UCLA shouldn't be number 1. And I can wait. So as for USC, they are, like I mentioned, they're actually at the FAU Beach Invitational. So they play Tampa, Florida State, FAU, and TCU. So the TCU matchup is probably going to be an interesting matchup to see who looks good in terms of like their litmus test. Like who's going to be like, it's a litmus test for both USC and TCU. I think both those teams are, and the two are also going to be facing each other on Tuesday as well. So that's going to be a big litmus test for both the Horned Frogs and the Trojans. I think it's going to be a nice little test for both teams. And then USC also gets to face the likes of Florida State, which should be better than they were last year, as Florida State was very young last year, probably one of the more younger teams that they've had. But I think that Florida State can definitely still have another deep run like they did last year. So I'm sure the Noles will still be up there in terms of talent. So you have that right there, and that's pretty much some of the notables for this past week's beach volleyball season. Who else was in action last week? All I know is that USC was also in action, and then LSU wasn't the greatest, but they certainly weren't the worst. I think Cal had a few. I think Cal won. I'm sorry. I think it wasn't Washington and GC. It wasn't Washington and LSU. It was GCU and Washington. They had a rough week. LSU managed to make it close against USC. LSU had a better weekend than GCU did. But USC also got a nice little win over Cal, which was nice. Cal's a solid team. I don't think they were number 10 in the poll this past week. But unfortunately for those poor little gutty little Golden Bears, no dice Glen Rice. So there you have it right there. And I think for USC, this is going to be a little bit of a tough week. I think they should be able to handle that for the most part. I can't imagine USC losing to any of those teams. Come on. This is USC we're talking about. But now that I mentioned Cal, they face LSU, Arizona State, FIU, and then Texas, which should be a nice little matchup right there. Nice little test right there. Because Cal is starting to kind of get it together after they unfortunately had a tough week in Hawaii. They beat Sac State, they beat Davis, they beat San Francisco, they beat Pacific at the Battle of the Bay. Real original name. And then this past week, they actually took down LSU 4-1, GCU 3-2, and then Washington 4-1. Their only loss was to USC, which some of those matchups in that duel were actually pretty close. So there you have it right there. The MPSF Coast to Coast Classic was just a fun matchup. I wish I could have gone, but I had plans that day. So there you have it right there. All right, now let's talk a little MLV action. So let's recap week 9. It feels like the season is flying by, and it had to happen. It just had to happen. So where we left off was Thursday, where I just briefly talked about Orlando taking down the Columbus Fury in 4 sets. Long story short, this was expected. Columbus Fury is the worst team in the league. I'm sorry to say that. Columbus Fury is kind of like the Cleveland Browns of the MLV. I'm sorry, but Orlando kind of needs this win. I mean, they still need to keep pace in the top 4 with Brittany Abercrombie and Hannah Maddox out. So yeah, Hannah Maddox is out with a back injury in case you missed last week's show. And then Brittany Abercrombie is out with a foot injury. She's been out with a foot injury the past month, which is that's concerning because Abercrombie was last year's MVP and they need her healthy as possible. All right, moving on to the rest of week 9. So we had a triple header on Saturday. So might as well just rip the Band-Aid off right away. The Omaha Supernovas played at the Grand Rapids Rise. And if you all saw last week's show, I gave pretty much a motivational speech of why the Omaha Supernovas can't lose this matchup. I think they had lost like 5 in a row going into this matchup against Grand Rapids, and they needed the win in the worst way. Unfortunately for the Supernovas, they didn't get the memo as they wound up losing to Grand Rapids in Van Andel Arena in 4 sets, and Omaha was lucky to win that second set. They wound up winning it in overtime, 29-27. But, God, Omaha is a mess. It's so surprising because Omaha has the best fan base, and they draw the most revenue of all the MLV teams, yet they still find ways to lose. And this has just been the nastiest slide for them this season. As Grand Rapids, on the other hand, they were led by Elizabeth Ine and Paige Romine Briggs, both having 14 kills. Carly Snyder had 13 kills. As a team, Grand Rapids hit 301, which is unacceptable if you ask me. For Omaha, they were led by Sarah Parsons, who had 15 kills. They also got 12 kills from Reagan Cooper, Brooke Nunneveller did play, but she only had 2 kills and 7 assists, and she didn't even play sets 3 and 4. So, man, there's something wrong with her. And then I guess Brooke Mosier was the one that set the offense for the most part, but she didn't play in. She didn't play in set 4. They went with Sydney Hilly in set 4. So Omaha's a mess. There's no better way of saying it. But I will say Sarah Parsons also had 19 digs, which was very nice. And they also got 21 digs from Elena Ogilvy. And then Morgan Hentz, she had 15 digs, which is solid against her former team. And then Elena Ogilvy had, like I said, 21 digs against her former team. But look, Omaha's a mess. This is just unacceptable. This is bad, dude. I'm not the biggest. Look, of all the teams that I admire in the MLV, I admire Omaha the most because they have a great fan base. They play at CHI Health Center, and they're kind of the poster. Would this be the correct terminology? The poster child of the MLV. But now they've lost, I think, 6 in a row. It's unacceptable, dude. It's like, and you lost to Grand Rapids. It's like the Rise are one of the they're one of the worst teams in terms of like home. They're one of the worst home teams out there. And you need this win in order to keep up with the likes of the top 4 because they were 2 and 4 going into that home game, and now they're 3 and 4. They're nearly 500. But Omaha, they're now 2 games below 500. This is the worst they've been in terms of like being below 500. And they haven't been 500, like I said last episode, they haven't been 500 since the start of the formerly known as PVF season when they were 0-1. It's just disgusting, dude. It's like, if you're an Omaha fan, you got to be wondering what is going on with Omaha. I don't even know what's going on with Omaha. But this is why I follow Lincoln Arneal. Anyway, moving on. So we have the Dallas Pulse taking on the Orlando Valkyries. So that matchup between Grand Rapids and Omaha, that was on Roku channel. This was on YouTube. The Pulse wound up sweeping the Valkyries, and this kind of reinforces the fact that Orlando needs Brittany Abercrombie, and they also need Hannah Maddox because, man, their offense is just nothing without them. They had no players in double digits in terms of kills. Their kill leaders were Natalie Foster and Charity Looper, both having 7 kills. Looper had 10 digs, and then Shampoo had 26 assists to go along with 9 digs. Meanwhile, for Dallas, they were led by Sofia Maldonado Diaz, who had 17 kills. They also got 18 kills from Mimi Collier, so they pretty much had the two-headed monster just going off. And then Kaylee Cox had 13 digs to go along with her 4 kills. Natalia Valentina Anderson had 42 assists and 10 digs. Kylie Murr got the start at libero. She had 12 digs. So Dallas is looking like the Dallas team that has been like 100% legit. And they deserve all the praise. Like, this is their first season, and they are working their way up the ladder. Like, they're second place in their first season. Like, that's incredible. You know what else is incredible? The Atlanta Vibe taking down the San Diego Mojo on the road in 4 sets. So I was concerned about this matchup. I was wondering in the back of my mind, there could be a possible letdown spot for San Diego. Just because they were on this nice little winning streak. They were in the top 4 of the MLV standings. And now Atlanta kind of crashed the party, and they wound up taking down the Mojo in 4 sets on the road, which is pretty good. And considering Atlanta is also trying to fight for a playoff spot, it shows that they're starting to really care, as Leah Edmond led the way with 18 kills and 14 digs. Taylor Smith had 14 kills and 15 digs. Avery Carlson had 47 assists to go along with 8 digs. As a team, Atlanta hit 302 while holding San Diego to a solid 257, which actually isn't bad, but unfortunately not good enough. Maya Tabron led the way for San Diego with 22 kills and 14 digs. They also got 12 kills from Marin Grote, and then they got 11 kills from Jovana Brakocevic. Grace Loberg had 23 digs to go along with 6 kills, which is pretty good if you ask me. Shara Venegas also had 20 digs. Like, San Diego as a team, they had 92 digs, while Atlanta only had 73. And you're telling me San Diego lost? This is unacceptable. But I knew there was kind of going to be a letdown spot as Marley Monserrat had 19 digs to go along with 51 assists. So, God, just when we thought that San Diego was on the up and up, they decided to go 10 steps backwards. Nice work, Mojo. And then Sunday, I don't know if we can kind of say that this concludes the week 9 week of the MLV. I think tomorrow there's a matchup that concludes the week. We had the Grand Rapids Rise playing at the Indy Ignite, and this was such an unfair matchup for Grand Rapids as Indy wound up beating them in 4. This was the second of a back-to-back for Grand Rapids. This is such a raw deal. No team should ever have to play on the back-to-back night, especially when they have to go from home all the way up to on the road. Now, if they were playing a home-and-home match on back-to-back nights, I accept that. But if you're having to play one match at home and then one match on the road, that's not enough time to recover and recoup and prepare. Like, what was the MLV thinking? Anyway, so for the Indy Ignite, they were led by Lecator member Monet, who had 15 kills. They also had 13 kills from Kayla Lund and then 10 kills from Cameron Hanna, as the Ignite are still leading the MLV standings by a healthy amount. The Ignite hit 269 while holding Grand Rapids to only hitting percentage of 177, as Grand Rapids was led by Paige Romine Briggs, who had 15 kills. Or I think it's Paige Briggs Romine, but you get what I mean. I just refer to her as Paige Briggs, but she's married. They also got 12 digs from Morgan Hens. They also got 36 assists from Cameron Turner, as well as 11 digs from her. They got 12 digs from Candela Alonso Corcelis, but it wasn't enough as the Ignite wound up winning on the road. And like I said, they are well healthy in terms of being the number 1 team in the MLV. They're 13-2. That's ridiculous, dude. So that's really awesome if you ask me. And the crazy part is that Indy has yet to lose a 5-set match, but doesn't mean that they've lost a 4-set match. So anyway, so closing off week 9 of the MLV season is the Omaha Supernovas at the Columbus Fury. This is going to be a Tuesday matchup. God, look, if Omaha can't win this matchup, I don't know where the next win's going to come against, because, look, Omaha needs a win ASAP. This losing needs to stop right here and now. They're facing the worst team in the league. The only way they don't win this matchup is if they just don't show up. If they just show up with a bad attitude, they just show up with just a me, not we attitude, and they just play down to their competition. There's no way they should lose this matchup. Like, Omaha has to win this matchup, because I imagine the schedule is going to get tough from here on out, because we have the week 10 preview of the MLV. Fury clash. We have the Orlando Valkyries and the Indy Ignite. So again, it's round 3, I think, between the Ignite and the Valkyries, as the Ignite is looking to try to bolster their lead in terms of the MLV standings. Meanwhile, for the Valkyries, they're just licking their wounds and trying to keep up with the entirety of the MLV, because it shows that they need Brittany Abercrombie and Hannah Maddox back. So this should be an interesting matchup, but if Indy continues to play the way that Indy's been playing, you got to wonder if Indy can really actually win the whole thing. Also, you got to remember that Indy has yet to have their little rough patch. I think every team in the MLV has had at least one rough patch in their program's history. Indy has yet to have a season, a time where they've had a rough patch week, where they've lost like a bunch of matches in a row. So we'll see what happens when it comes to Indy Orlando on Thursday. Then Friday, we have the Grand Rapids Rise playing the Atlanta Vibe. Well, if Atlanta wants to continue its winning ways, this is the matchup to do so. I am more high on the Vibe than I am on the Rise, but you'd never know with Grand Rapids. Grand Rapids might be the most finicky team out there, and they could possibly be trying to fight their way back up the conference standings ladder. But Atlanta is hungry to try to keep their way in terms of possibly, continuing to work its way up the ladder. Because right now, Atlanta is 4th in the MLV standings. but they're only a half a game ahead of San Diego, and they're basically tied for third with Orlando, even though Atlanta's played 2 less matches. And then you also have Omaha, which is like a full game back of Atlanta as well. So Atlanta needs to continue its winning ways, and they have to beat the Rise. Like, wins, you got to take care of the opponents that you're supposed to take care of. And then also on Friday, we have the Columbus Fury at the Dallas Pulse. There's nothing really to talk about when it comes to this matchup. I mean, the only way Dallas doesn't win this matchup is if Dallas just underestimates Columbus by many things. So, I mean, the Fury would be playing with house money, but honestly, look, Dallas should win this one. Dallas has too much talent on their team to lose to the Columbus Fury. And then we jump to Saturday. We have a doubleheader starting with the San Diego Mojo at the Orlando Valkyries. This one is an interesting matchup. So San Diego is trying to get back on track in terms of making it and finishing in the top 4 of the MLV standings, while Orlando is fighting for its lives here. They know that season's starting to wind down, and if they don't start winning more often than not, then they won't be able to defend their MLV crown. But the Mojo are in a position, like, if there's ever a chance for the Mojo to catch the Valkyries on an off night, this is the chance. Without Brittany Abercrombie and Hannah Maddox, the Valkyries just don't look like the Valkyries that they were last year. Even though they didn't have Hannah Maddox last year, they still had a bunch of other talented players. So I think San Diego needs to really catch Orlando sleeping and pretty much down for the count. Because if San Diego wants to make the playoffs, this is their chance to start winning matches against teams that are down. And then the second doubleheader is the Indy Ignite at the Omaha Supernovas. See what I mean about the schedule starting to get a little tougher for Omaha? This is what I mean. So Omaha is playing Indy, and I still can't believe Omaha is like one of the worst home records this season. They have the third worst home record. The Omaha they're 2-6 at home. Orlando is 2-7 at home. And then Columbus Fury is the lone team without a win. That's another thing right there. If the Omaha Supernovas become the first team to lose to the Columbus Fury at home next week, or this week, tomorrow, I got to go off on the Omaha Supernovas. I don't care if Omaha fans will get angry at me. This is just unacceptable. Like, Columbus has not won a home match this year. This is where Omaha has to win. And Omaha's 5-3 on the road. But going back to the Indy Ignite matchup, that's going to be a really tough matchup. But if Omaha can get that win against Columbus, this is where they have a chance to rewrite their wrongs. Because Omaha, currently where they're sitting at right now in terms of the standings, they're 6th. If you were to tell me that the Omaha Supernovas were going to be 6th in the standings, I would have laughed at you uproariously. So Omaha's got to get the win right here. This is where they really have to win this one. Just because the schedule, the Indy Ignite matchup is going to be a tough one, but they got to win the Columbus Fury one at the very least. The Indy Ignite matchup is going to be a tough one, especially if Indy is just continuing to play its best ball as of late. But this is kind of a trap week for Indy because Orlando's licking their wounds and is down a couple of their best players, while Omaha is just down entirely. They're just on a downward spiral. So this could be a case where either Indy could bolster their lead in the MLV standings, or they could kind of get bit in the butt when it comes to facing 2 opponents that are licking their wounds. And then on Sunday, we have the Atlanta Vibe at the Dallas Pulse. This is an interesting matchup. Dallas needs a win in order to remain in the top 2 and stay right behind the Indy Ignite, while Atlanta needs the win in order to stay in the top 4 altogether. This will be a tough matchup for Atlanta, but it's not impossible for them to win. Atlanta definitely is a good team. It's just a matter of finding consistency. If they play down to their competition, which you can't do against Dallas because Dallas isn't below you. But if Atlanta just plays, not good ball, then Dallas could win this one fairly easily. But if Atlanta plays like they did against some of their other opponents like Orlando and San Diego. I think Atlanta could win this one, but this is an intriguing matchup. So I think, and that's also going to be on CBS Sports Network, by the way. And I think, it's so tough to determine which starts the week in terms of week 10, because there's also a Wednesday matchup, not this Wednesday, but the following Wednesday, where the Dallas Pulse takes on the Grand Rapids Rise. So I imagine that matchup is the last matchup in terms of week 10, which figure it out, MLV. Why do you got to have your matchups on Wednesday? Like, were you unable, like, if anything, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday should be the rest days for MLV fans and all MLV teams. Unless you have to have a matchup on Monday, which if that's the case, then at least one team should play a Monday match per season. So there's that right there. And the end of the regular season in terms of the MLV season is May 3rd. So May 3rd is the final day of the regular season in terms of the MLV season. So, and surprisingly, the Omaha Supernovas don't play on that day. So, well, neither do the Grand Rapids Rise, but I digress. So I wouldn't say it's win or go home time for Omaha or the other teams, but season's starting to. There's less than 2 months left in terms of the MLV season, and soon the MLV All-Star match will be on the horizon, because that's on the 28th, and that's going to be on CBS Sports Network and Paramount Plus, which I might be able to watch if I have the time to myself. And that's on the 28th. We don't even get a chance to see that on the schedule. So I imagine that's like on a Sunday. No, it's on a Saturday. Poop. Oh, well. Yeah, it's on a Saturday. Either way, it's on a weekend. So there you have it right in terms of the MLV. All right, so now let's move on to week 9 of the MLV or the LOVB season. So a lot has been happening in terms of League One volleyball. I'm still wondering where the league championship is going to be held at in terms of Los Angeles. So week 9 was actually an intriguing week. So week 9 started off, well, I mentioned this last show. Houston took down Madison in straight sets, not surprising there. Thursday, we actually had Atlanta taking down Salt Lake in a 5-set barn burner, where Atlanta wound up winning set 5, 18-16, which was really incredible. And then on Friday, we had Houston taking down Austin in 4 sets, which, don't look down, Houston just continues to win. And this was kind of the stunner right here. We had Nebraska, arguably one of the worst teams in League One volleyball, taking down Salt Lake in straight sets. So Salt Lake is going the wrong way, while Nebraska's starting to go on the up and up. I think remember, the top 4 teams advanced to the League One championships. So if the season ended right now, Nebraska would still be on the outside looking in. But we'll get into the standings a little later. But that's a massive win right there for Nebraska. That's a great win right there. And then Madison finally managed to beat a team not named Nebraska, as they took down Atlanta in 4 sets. So just when we all thought Atlanta was on the up and up, they run into a brick wall in Madison. So looking at the standings, we have a new leader in terms of League One volleyball, and it's Houston, as they are 9-5. Salt Lake is 8-6. So remember when Salt Lake was ruling everything with an iron fist? They've now lost 4 straight. So Salt Lake's got to get their you-know-what together. Atlanta is 7-6. They occupy the 3 spot. Austin is 7-7. They occupy the 4th spot. Nebraska is 5-7. They occupy the 5 spot, but they've won 2 straight. And then Madison is bringing up the rear at 4-9. So there you have it right there in terms of the League One volleyball standings. And we head to week 10, where we start off with on Wednesday with the Texas 2-step. We start off with Austin versus Houston. So Houston is all alone in first place, while Austin is kind of fighting for the final spot in terms of the playoffs. I mean, I shouldn't be talking playoffs right away, but this is an interesting matchup. I think Austin is definitely capable of beating Houston, but Houston's been red hot as of late. And I think Houston was mad after they got reverse swept by Nebraska a couple weeks ago. So I think for Houston, this is a still a big-time matchup, and the Texas two-step is obviously an important matchup just because there's a lot of pride on the line. And then on Thursday, we have the Battle of the Bottom. We have LOVB Nebraska taking on LOVB Madison. So that's going to be played in Madison. If Nebraska wants to continue its winning ways, this would be a great opportunity to win. And I get it. Nebraska's kind of been swirled with a lot of question marks, like why is Lexi Rodriguez not playing? Well, they have another libero that they're using, and she's kind of been getting the job done. Unfortunately for Lexi Rodriguez, she has kind of, I wouldn't say she's been put on the shelf, but she's just kind of having to watch from the sidelines. But at least she's becoming a good team player. But all Nebraska fans and all women's volleyball fans are starting to get the whole free Lexi Rodriguez thing going, kind of like free Ifena Kaspala thing. But I digress. Then Saturday, there's a doubleheader. Atlanta takes on Houston, and then Nebraska takes on Salt Lake. All right, Salt Lake, first and foremost, Salt Lake needs the win in the worst way. They got to get back in the win column, because if they don't, then this could be a massive downward spiral. And then for Houston and Atlanta, this is an interesting matchup. Atlanta is not too far off from Houston, and Atlanta just continues to win. Even though they just recently lost to Madison, they've still won 3 of their last 4. But if I'm Atlanta, I'm not pulling any punches when it comes to taking on Houston. But the same can be said for Houston as well. And then Salt Lake can't pull any punches against Nebraska. Otherwise, they're going to go further and further down. And then Sunday, to close off Week 10 of the League One volleyball season, we have Austin and Madison. Austin needs the win in order to keep its playoff hopes alive. And then Madison needs the win in order to keep itself in the playoff hunt. So the last week of the League One volleyball season is actually less than a month away. So the last day of the regular season is on Saturday, April 4th, where Austin takes on Nebraska. How fitting. You get last year's finalists. And then the playoffs will be played in Freedom Hall, which is where Louisville plays at. So yeah, the first matchup is on April 10th, and then you've also got the second matchup on April 10th, which is 45 minutes after the first match. And then you've got Saturday's matchup, and then which is going to be on ESPN2, which is pretty cool. And then Sunday, you've got the final matchup of the playoffs, so the first few rounds. And then the finals, or the championships. So the playoffs are in Louisville from April 10th through the 12th. And then the championship will be in Los Angeles, and that'll be on Thursday the 16th and April the 18th. Unfortunately, we don't know where exactly it's going to be held at, whether it's going to be at Crypto.com Arena, whether it's going to be at not Allegiant Stadium, SoFi Stadium. But why am I blanking on the where the Clippers play? I mean, I'm not a Clippers fan, but I should know where they play, because I'm a Intuit Dome. So it's either going to be played. So that's kind of makes me wonder. So where will the LOVB or League One Volleyball Championship be played at? Will it be played at Intuit Dome, where the Clippers play? Will it be played at Crypto.com Arena, where the Lakers play? Could it be played at Poly Pavilion, or could it be played at Galen Center? That's a possibility. Could it also be played in SoFi Stadium? That's a little far-fetched. That's kind of going a little too far. But, yeah. I think Intuit Dome and Crypto.com Arena are logical options. And then you've also got Galen Center and Poly Pavilion. Because I imagine I don't think USC is playing on those days. But we'll have to wait and see. I mean, it's still up in the air. I mean, would they really want to play at a college gymnasium? I don't know. It's a wait and see process when it comes to the League One Volleyball Championships. So we'll have to wait and see when it comes down to it. But overall, all I can tell you is that Los Angeles is going to be hosting the League One Volleyball Championship, which I think is going to be pretty solid. Again, I really got to get me a credential. So, but I'm actually on the UCLA USC men's volleyball websites, which Let's see if UCLA and USC are hosting, because they could also be playing in the conference tournament, which will be played in Utah. So it's okay. So we can officially eliminate Poly Pavilion from being a possible location for the League One Volleyball Championship, because UCLA is hosting BYU on both nights, on the 16th and the 18th. So tough toenails when it comes to people that wanted to see this at the Poly Pavilion. And then Galen Center would be the USC is playing Pepperdine on Thursday at Galen Center, and then they'll be in Malibu on the 18th. So I guess we can eliminate USC from being a possible spot in terms of the League One Volleyball Championship. So I guess we can officially eliminate those two. I guess it would have to be either Crypto.com Arena or Intuit Dome. So there you have it. All right, but that is that right there for League One Volleyball. We'll get more into it as the season goes by, but we only have a few more weeks left. We only have 4 weeks left of the regular season before playoffs happening, and this is where I think I wouldn't say this is kind of do or die time, but this is kind of crunch time. But before I close off the show, I actually do want to talk a little high school boys volleyball. So the Mira Costa Mustangs, Mira Costa boys volleyball managed to win the Best of the West boys volleyball tournament in San Diego. So this was actually an incredible thing. So Mira Costa was last year's national champion entirely. They were the national champion altogether. They wound up winning the CIF Southern Section Championship. They wound up winning the CIF State Championship. And they wound up being national champions courtesy of USA Today and as well as Max Preps. So along the way, Mira Costa they had to grind their way out through not grind their way out through pool play, but they managed to pretty much breeze their way through pool play for the most part. They took down Moana Lua of Hawaii, Tesoro of Las Flores, and then Canyon Crest Academy of San Diego. But gold bracket play was kind of a grind for them. So their first match, they took down Bellarmine of Northern California. They took them down in 3 sets. So all the matches were best 2 out of 3 instead of 3 out of 5. So Mira Costa was able to win that one 20-25, 25-12, and 15-5. And then in the quarterfinals, they took down Torrey Pines in another 3-set barn burner, winning 25-21, 24-26, and then 15-9. Which was another grinded out matchup right there. And then the semifinals, Mira Costa took down Huntington Beach in a rematch of last year's SoCal Regional Division I final, as well as the CIF Southern Section Division I final. And this one was highly anticipated, but Mira Costa was able to win it 21-25, 25-20, and 15-13. That was a barn burner of a matchup. And I imagine we will be seeing Mira Costa and Huntington Beach take on one another yet again. And then the tournament championship, Mira Costa took down Corona Del Mar, who I'm really high on this year, in straight sets, 25-18 and 25-15. I did actually talk to Katie Thompson, the head coach of Corona Del Mar. She said her players were kind of gassed because it's tough. Tournaments are tough for them considering they only play 7 players. They don't really have the depth like they do in terms of like playing other players off the bench, but it shows that they have the experience. So for Corona Del Mar, I'm still high on them. I think they could really do a lot of good things this season. I think they are a fantastic team this year, and I think tournaments they're not built for most tournaments, but I think for them, they're going to be built for the CIF Southern Section playoffs and the rest of the way. So do not underestimate the Sea Kings just because they wound up losing this tournament. So there you have it right there. And the all-tournament team is as follows. So I think the MVP, Mateo Furbringer was named MVP. And why is the Best of the West not have where he's at? So Mateo Furbringer's committed to UCLA. And then that's weird. Then Wyatt Davis was named all-tournament. And then Jake Newman was named all-tournament. For Corona Del Mar, Ben Brown and Drake Foley, that are bound for UCSB and Penn State, they made all tournament. Logan Hutnick and Ben Arguello, they both made all tournament. Arguello's pretty much going to Golden West, and then Logan Hutnick is going to USC. Loyola of Los Angeles, they had Johnny Gosson and Matt Kelly made all tournament. Matt Kelly is bound for he's committed to Loyola Chicago, so he's going from one Loyola to another. And then that's it for the quarterfinals. For the semifinals. For the quarterfinals, we had Will Denning of the Bishop School making all tournament. He's only a junior. You had Griffin Dieter of Torrey Pines. He's only a junior. He made all tournament. Zach DeMaio of Newport Harbor. He made all tournament. He's not committed yet, but he's a senior. And Punahou's Cam Porter, who's committed to UCSD. He's a senior. He made all tournament as well. So there you have it in terms of the all tournament teams. But this kind of begs the question: is Miracosta destined to bound to win another championship? For the time being, I'm going to say no. I still think Corona Del Mar is still better than them in terms of like experience. I just think tournament wise, Corona Del Mar is not built for tournaments. But once playoffs roll around, I think Corona Del Mar will shine brightest when the lights shine. When the lights shine bright, I think Corona Del Mar is going to shine the brightest. But this week they actually have a big road test. They play at Loyola of Los Angeles. I think it's going to really test them to see where they're really at. Because last week they beat Huntington Beach fairly easily. This time around, I'm not sure if Loyola. I'm not sure if Loyola can keep up with Corona Del Mar, but we shall see when it comes to that. And don't count out Huntington Beach either. Last week was kind of a rough week for them, but this week I think they can get back on track. We shall see what happens with them going forward. They have two big matchups against Edison and Newport Harbor. I might be there for the Newport Harbor match, but it's not set in stone. But that's going to do it for this week's episode of Set Point. That's going to do it for the high school boys volleyball season, or high school boys volleyball portion of the show. And that'll do it for this week's episode of Set Point. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. I really appreciate y'all. For everyone here at iSports Radio, this is Teran Rodriguez signing off. Have yourself an amazing week. Enjoy all the volleyball action. I will see you all on Saturday at Galen Center when USC plays Penn State. Have a great week, everybody. Peace. And be healthy as well. Do not get sick like I did last week.